Okay. Welcome everybody. Well, today we're going to tell you a little bit about process mining, about Infor LN. Today's program is introduction, which Chris just did. Later on, we will tell you a little bit about the introduction of the process mining. My part will be tell you a little bit about the background of the digitalization world, the challenges we face, and in the end, I will hand over it to Rose to tell you a little bit about the demonstration. Of course, that's interesting about the possibilities of Infor and Celonis, which we did. And after that, we will tell you a little bit about the possibilities, how we can help you with your current journey. If you look to the world of digitalization, you see a lot of companies doing a lot of effort for creating modernization, their new software applications, taking manual activities into automated effort. A lot of effort is done, and the real digital revolution is really started. You see that we do a lot of effort. More and more companies are very busy with that. So the digitalization is really going on. The challenge for this one is that we modernize a lot of systems, processes, and in the end, it looks like that we are more or less drowning in data and losing grip of our real processes. Actually, that's why we are spending a lot of effort in our software implementations, but it looks like that we are not getting to the maximum. Actually, what analysis provides us is we have a kind of execution gap. We have our current processes, we have a lot of automated, but the reality is we don't use them a lot. We are incapable, we cannot use its full potential, and actually there's a big drawback in the investments we did and the real processes. So actually processes are not really optimized. How to get out of this, hooking up different systems, doing different processes, how to unlock their potential, how do we get from more investing to real grip on different processes. That's where process mining comes in. And if you want to improve your processes, we need other tools. We need process mining tools where you can actually see what you can actually measure in your system versus the possibilities how to actually create insight and actually make it clean. That's something of which Rose will tell you a little bit more about the real world of process mining. Rose, go ahead.
All right, thank you, Jan. Good afternoon, everybody. Yeah, so let's go ahead and go to the process mining basics. So as Jan mentioned, we have the issue of having an execution gap, and we want to take care of this. One of the opportunities is in the digital footprints, because all modern software systems have one thing in common, and that is that they are able to trace cases that they set in the system or modify in the system. And these digital footprints form the basis of process mining. So there are three things that are really important for, to be able to process mine. The first one being a case identifier, the specific case you want to follow through the process. So for example, an invoice, a service ticket, a sales order, whatever. The second one, an activity, because you want to know what steps is this process case going through. The third one being a timestamp, also really important, because when you assemble the three of these, you're able to distinguish which case is doing what at what timestamp. And then in the technology of process mining, we use these three characteristics and we put them into an event log, a tabular form where we put in all the activities that are happening. And then we are able to use the process mining algorithm to transform this into a process model. It's the one that you see on the right. And you can see the process model is really easy to see. The visualization is clear in one time. What is really interesting is when we increase the number of cases that we are tracking and we're increasing the number of activities that we are following in the database, the analytical potential is endless. So let's give you already a small indication of what we do with this process model. The first one being to basically discover the process behavior by analyzing the process model itself. So we really take a look at, all right, how is our actual process running? This is already a treasure to look at on itself, but we can also go into the next steps. One that's really interesting is to compare the process model with the desired process model that we designed beforehand. And we can see how our as-is process is compared to how we actually would desire it to be. And this is called conformance checking. And here we look at the deviations between the two. We can also go a step deeper and really look into the organizational characteristics. For example, company codes. We want to compare one company location to another one and see how they are handling the process differently. And this is really interesting because here we can also achieve best practices. Finally, one that's really becoming more popular by the day is the simulation. Because what is so great about process mining is that we're actually covering 100% of the data. And this allows us to create a digital twin, so a replica of the actual process. And then we want to start tweaking some parameters. And once we do this, we are able to really simulate different scenarios and see how bottlenecks are affected, throughput time is affected, cash flow is affected. So this process mining basis really is the start of a lot of great opportunities. It's nice to know that this is the basis of process mining, but now we want to know, all right, how can we start? So let's go to an overview of Celonis. Celonis has a platform which is really a bit of an end-to-end software. We call it the execution management system. And we also always start with data extraction. In this case, we want to connect to Infor, and we've created this data connector, which is Celonis approved. And we load all types of information, such as database stored information from, for example, a data lake, on-premise or cloud. But also think about workflows from IAM. It's also something that we will show today in the demo. The second part, once we've arranged this data extraction, is we want to visualize it. So we really use the core mining engine of Celonis. In this case, we start using the platform to make analysis and use their functionalities to really identify gaps in our process. Once we've identified these gaps, we want to act on those. And what is really great is that because we've created one single source of truth, everyone is seeing the same data, we can arrange throughout every management layer to send the right information. So we can decide to only provide sufficient information for an employee to take the next step, but we can also decide to go into the next step in a hybrid or a full automation and really strategize our process optimization in the future. So you might be wondering, all right, how does this look? So I will show you around. Celonis works with the measure, know, and act. We first always start with the measure, because what's already really interesting is to see, all right, how are our processes running? How are they really running? And with our Infor connector, we created a real-time connection, and we can immediately sense friction. Once we see our process is running, it's really nice to take this next step and really use Celonis functionalities to create these deep dive analysis. We can identify root causes, and then we can predict when and where friction is likely to happen. And once we've set our mind straight on what our issues are, we want to go a next step and act on this. So in our case, we found some friction points and we want to improve these. And by doing this, we can also improve the execution capacity. In this case, once we pass the measure and the know and we won't know what's wrong, we can take on the act. And with this act, we can really make sure that the data remains clean in the future. So I want to guide you through one example of the traditional business intelligence reporting compared to the measure, know, and act philosophy. Because traditionally, We use our data to analyze our performance, but it's a really high-level process KPI with limited details. For example, we know that our lead time is 14 days, and we know that this is well above our targets, but we have to find other resources to find out what is going on. When we turn to the EMS, we are able to really deep dive already, because we use the mind process model to find deviations and inefficiencies. We can see increasing lead times at certain activities. And when we really deep dive in these activities, we can identify root causes. In this case, we are seeing material group, that indirect materials are having a lot of changes. Or for example, a business partner where the company takes a lot more time to do the credit check. Once we know what is going on and we want to solve this, we can rely on acts. In this case, we want to automate some of the jobs coming from this. So for the first one, we're saying, all right, once Celonis is triggered that this case is happening, we want to automatically update the master data in Infor to change the price when it's under certain logic. Or for the second case, we're saying, all right, for certain low value orders or certain customers which we have a really high dependency on and a good relation, we want to automatically approve them and be notified through email. So I think I've already shown a small part of what also will be shown in Celonis. I would like to hand it over to my colleague Jan-Peter, and he will actually show you around in Celonis with actual Infor data and work out a use case. So I'd like to give it to Jan-Peter.
Well, thank you very much, and welcome everybody to the demonstration that we will give today in Celonis. So first of all, a little bit of the background of the demonstration that I will give you. So what we're doing is we show you a process at our company, ABC Company. It's a purchase to pay process, and this process contains purchase orders and purchase schedules. It's based on a real data set that we used in one of our applications of Celonis. The challenge that we have over here is that we had some fluctuations in the process lead times, especially at the approval parts. And the solution that we created is we did some root cause analyses into the lead times and also in approval workflows. And then we created smart sensors to inform employees about delays. So let me open the Celonis screen. There we are. I have to refresh to log in. Yes, there we are. All right, let's go to the apps and to the analysis that I would like to show you today. So this is Celonis, and I will take you through several screens to show you what we did for one of our clients. So first of all, we have here a lot of data that we had from the Infor system. We're tracking right now purchase schedule lines and purchase order lines. And we see right here that we have 36,000 of them. We also can track the value that they represent, and we see the month and week that they are incoming. Right now, what you're looking at is the Process Explorer. So here we have the process model that Rose already said. What's really nice is that we have all the data of the process inside of here, but you can imagine that's quite complex. So if I set up the filters, you see that the process is coming really complex. And that's, well, maybe for now a little bit difficult to understand. So that's why I keep it a little bit down, but be aware, like, if you want to track all the traces in your process, that's really possible with process mining. Right here, we see that we have the schedules process and we have the order process. Today, we will focus on the orders. So right here, I select that I want to focus on purchase orders, and visualization is already adjusted. So let's zoom in a bit in the process to see which steps we have. We start the process over here, and then we get the first start with the request over here. What we can see is from a request, we go into a request line, but also we can see that the numbers are deviating. That's because we are now really zooming in into the main flow, but you can see already in one of the visualization I had before, that there are also more outgoing arcs going on, but that's not what you see right now. So that's why we have deviation in the numbers over here. So once a request line is created, we have here the workflows, and the workflow consists on a task that's created, an approval task is assigned, an approved task is approved, in the happy flow at least. Once all the tasks are completed, and one workflow consists of multiple of them, so that's why you see here a circle, then the whole request is approved. Once this approved, an order is created, and this company is really focusing on the purchase requisition part. So once purchase requisition is approved, we'll see that sometimes a purchase order approval is needed, but that's not always the case. So that's why we also see deviations over here. Once this approved, then we go to the order sent. Sometimes we see that the goods are received, then the order is in process, the order is closed, and sometimes we see that the invoice is received for the purchase order. So here we can see the invoice is received, sent by the supplier. Here the invoice is registered in Infor. Here the invoice is paid, and luckily that is before the invoice due date. So we're good. What you also can see is here another outgoing arc. That means that these steps here below are skipped. Well, sometimes that's something that we require from the process. So for now, we're good. What's interesting to see is that because we have the timestamp in our data, we can not only see the numbers that goes through it, but you can also check the throughput times directly. So if we go to the average throughput time, and you see it in hours right now, you see that once it's created, it takes 5 hours for a line to create on average. Then we have here the approvals, and it takes for average 18 hours for that an approval is done. What's interesting is to see is that we started last year in December. So if I select the data, and I do it right here, then you see right now the throughput times that we had when the project started. So here, for instance, we see that an approval, once it's assigned, it takes sometimes 38 hours that is canceled, but once it is approved, it takes 23 hours. So this is longer than we saw in the previous selection. So if we go in the last month that we have in our data set, you can see already that it is now not 23 hours, but it's only 10 hours. So we made a huge improvement over there. And in the next sheets, I want to show you how we did that. So let's go to the lead time adherence sheet that we created. Right here, we focus on one KPI, and we do quite some deep dives to see what's really going on in the process. So first of all, on the left-hand side, I can do some filters by organization thing to zoom in some specific cases. Right here, I can select which lead time we want to trace. So right now we selected the first occurrence from the purchase requisition approval creation, and then to the last occurrence from the purchase requisition approval approved. Within this company, the ABC company, we said, all right, we want to take 3 days to do this. So it can take 3 days until all the tasks of the workflow are approved. So based on those 3 days, we see that on average, and let me put out the selection, we see on average that 24% is going well, so that's in less or 3 days, and 12% is taking longer than 12 days. Also, we see 64% as is not applicable, and that means that one of these activities doesn't exist in that use case. Well, that's still something that can happen. Sometimes we don't need a purchase requisition, so again, no worries over here. So right over here, we see the actual lead time in days. So we see that we have the majority in between 0 and 3 days. Also, we have some exceptions taking longer, but having also going to 55 days. The average in this process is right now 4 days, 4.2 days. And we can also zoom in a little bit more in the dimension that we have. So here, for instance, we have a display that shows us the purchase offices, and below we can also see more information about those purchase offices. I can also select right now other dimensions that we defined. So for instance, the site, the warehouse, the internal company, but also the item groups and the purchase office series. What you see directly is that we have major deviations right now in purchase offices. So our main purchase office had an average score of 62%, while they're handling 4,400 cases. But you also have some purchase offices that has a lead time adherence of 0 days. So while they are not the biggest ones, it's really interesting to see what's going on over there. Again, what's also really nice to see is that this is the over average in the whole data set. If I look back, then when we started the project, you can see that we had a really different use case. Right now, we see that 40% of the use case is on time and 20 half is not on time. So that's more than half. Also, we see that the average throughput time goes to 5.5 days. Well, you can imagine, of course, with the actions that we took, that is now improved. And right now we see that we only have a minority that is too late, and we have an average of 2 days. So we see here in just a couple of months, a great improvement of this use case. So right now we know that on the purchase requisition approvals that we have the workflows of Infor underneath that. The workflows of Infor are quite smart, but it's quite hard to see what's going on in the workflow if you are not assigned to the workflow yourself. So it's really interesting, and let's look at in the next sheet, is that we extracted the workflow data from Infor and put it in Celonis. So what you see on this side, we have here the workflows, and we see that some are open because we cut off data sets when it was still real life. Then we see the outcome of the workflow. And here, these are the tasks that are inside the workflow. So what we handled is 1,200 PRs, and we had more than 4,000 tasks that are created by those workflows. Here you see the task lead time. So if this open, it's the lead time until now. And if it's closed, it's the lead time until closure. What we see again is that the majority is less than 3 days, but we have some exceptions over there. Again, if we go to December, when we start the project, we see that we have quite some tasks that are going for 3 or longer, and also some that are more than 21 days. If we go to the latest month, you see that this amount is decreasing, and we are now the majority, the far majority is in between 0 to 3 days. And right here below, we see the data of the workflows themselves. So here you see the requisition numbers, we see the tasks, we see the task status, and we can track all of it. And now it becomes really interesting. Because we do the real-time data loads, that's once per hour, we can act upon this. So what you can see here on the right-hand side is that I can create a signal. What does it mean? That is when every time new data comes in, the automation engine of Celonis runs and tracks all the KPIs that we are running through the process. Once we have a deviation, a signal is created, and we can follow up upon that signal. So what Rose already said, we can do some automations so that it says, all right, make some changes in the source system, for instance, or send out mails to suppliers. But what we also can do, and that's where we started in with this project, is to notify people. So we said, all right, the people that are assigned to the task, they can see it themselves, but let's now send also this information to the purchasing team to see where the approvals get stuck, because they are the one that can maybe chase people. So let's, I won't show you what's going on in the backend, but let's see how it looks like in the Action Center. So right here, I have all the tasks that are created from the project. So I have here see the thing that's going on. In this case, we have an approval lead time that's going overdue, and I have some some details already showing over here. What's now very interesting is that we see here quite a lot the same person here in the list. So our colleague Clayton Wilson, yeah, something is going wrong over there. And that is for the purchase team really interesting because, right, maybe they know Clayton and they can say, Clayton, what's going on? Or maybe Clayton is on a long holiday, which he apparently deserved, but maybe there's no one that's now assigned to it. So over here, we have an execution cap that we can now steer on. If I click on one of the tasks, I see also again the details. And right now I can also say, all right, this is assigned to me. I will chase Clayton. I can also set the status. So right now this issue is solved. And that's really helpful to the team to really chase all those open approvals. What's also very interesting is once new data come in and the approval is done, all these tasks are going to the history. So they're not on this list anymore. So it's automatically updated with the new data that's coming in. So once it's active, yeah, the tasks are dissolved. So it's really a clear list to the team that helps them to execute the process. So let me go back to the presentation that I had, and this is something we are really proud on. So over here we have the management dashboard where you can see how the process is running. We have here 3 KPIs, but today we only focused on lead time adherence. And what you saw is in the data set that we have for the last 6 months, we see that on average on the lead time adherence is 66%, while the target of this company is 80%. And right now, in the last month, so we did it in, I think, in a couple of months, we now exist on 82%, which is above our standards. So this is what process mining and especially Celonis can bring to you in your process. Let's go back to the PowerPoint that we prepared for you, and let's do a little recap. So what you just saw in this demo is the purchase to pay process of our ABC company, containing purchase orders, purchase schedules, with a challenge that was about lead times and approvals. And we had a solution. We did some deep dives, especially right now in the workflows, and we created smart sensors to also execute on the gaps that we had in the process. So what brought us this project? I think we brought the data-driven organization to the next level. Right now, the team is capable of tracking real-time their most vital KPIs. And also, we've acted upon it. So we sent notifications to make people more aware of friction that exists in the process. The benefits that we had right here on the lead time adherence, which was just one small piece of the project, is that we now are on par with the company goals for the purchase requisition approvals. That means that 80% of the request approvals is handled in 3 days or less. What we also saw is that the average PR approval lead time is reduced with 3.5 days, and that in just a couple of months. That was it for the demonstration, and now I would like to hand over to my colleague Jan to tell you about the next steps that you can do.
Thank you very much. I hope you get a little bit more of an impression of what process mining can do for you, the value of it, and be of a solution for the big challenge companies have. If you think a little bit more about the possibilities of process mining, this slide provides you with the insight that you can use Celonis on different areas. For example, in operations, we can help you with the challenges you have on getting into control of your purchasing process, your service and maintenance for field management, but also in your mid-office processes like accounts payable or even the back office. You see also a much more application of Celonis in the compliance part. If you look to use cases, if you talk about purchase to pay, you can improve your lead times with using Celonis, but also in logistics, which I think is currently available, a challenge, the whole supply chain. Where are my material shortages, and what's the effect of material shortages in my bill of materials of the end of production or whatever. Celonis can help you with this kind of supply chain questions as well. But also if you look at the accounts payable, where you have an impact on your working capital, on payment timing. We see a lot of companies using a lot of digitalization in the order to cash process, but still have a challenge in their work process. With Celonis, we definitely can find the insight, but also the root causes. So actually, you can have more payment on time, and with that, reducing your work capital, which directly saves you money, I would say. From the inside, from the back office, as I said as well, process mining optimization is also used into the world of internal audit and compliance. We also have a lot of customers asking about risk control, but also about internal audit and using the compliance rules. So a lot of dashboards, which Jan-Peter showed, are a kind of mix of real process optimization, but also risk control. And even what is not on this slide, there's a possibility which is more and more getting attention, is also using it for sustainability questions, etc. This webinar was only a short overview of the possibilities of process mining in the world of Infor. With the help of Merino, we connected both worlds for using Infor as a platform and using the possibilities of Celonis. As said, Merino and Marcadus have the only one with actually having proven record of data connection. If you want a little bit more, you can always contact us. We can tell you a little bit more bit by bit more in depth about your potential issues, where we can help with our experience and knowledge and our already existing data connectors. for more in-depth demonstration. And if you want to try out a little bit more to actual use cases, we always can do that by proof of value, proof of concept, of course. Implementations, we always do that by use of Agile Sprint, which I must say in the current year, we have been successful both with client commitment and producing a lot of insight, creating a lot of usable information with actual data from a customer, which provides companies with actual situations instead of lean projects or other improvement projects. By use of Celonis and the Infor information, we can actually help companies fact-based real data, but we can also show that if you take measures, we can actually see what the result is. I think that a lot of companies, CFOs actually would like to see that if you spend a lot of effort in your process improvement parties, that you actually can see the improvement. And that's the big advantage, of course, of data analytics. This was our presentation. I'm looking at the questions we have so far. If you have questions, you can also provide it with us. The few questions which we already received, I got a few. One of the questions we already got was like, is this solution already active? And the answer is yes. This is definitely being successfully used by customers, which definitely helps them with the providing insight, in this case, for order to cash or purchase to pay process. But you can also do that on other parts as well. Another question we have is if it's based on only the data lake or on-premise, both sides, on-premise solutions or cloud solutions, we can handle. So that's on the architectural part of it. One other question we got was from the way of implementation. As I already said, we are using the sprint ways, sprint agile ways, which definitely provides on a short notice in 2 weeks a lot of insight, and of course it requires some additional effort from the customers as well, but that has always been successful. So far, if questions will come up in the question and answer section, we will answer them one-to-one. This was our webinar presentation. If you would like to more, you can always answer or contact Chris or my name. I hope we got you a little bit more insight and a more glimpse in the world of Celonis and Infor. I think both valuable and effective solutions. And with this combination, we can help you much more to not only solve business improvement, but also get more efficient usage of both applications. Thank you very much for your part, and hope to see you in the future. I see another question coming up. Question is more or less, do we have practical examples for use of the Celonis for internal auditor purposes? Yes, we definitely have them. And I think if we take it one-to-one, we can give you this a little bit more in more detail. So the answer is definitely yes. No further questions, then I close this webinar. Thank you very much, and I hope to have you a good day.